All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. All right, we're moving into really looking at argument and starting to think about some of the skills that we need to review. You do unfortunately have STAR coming up in the next few weeks. It is unfortunately a graduation requirement, but at the same time, these are really good skills to review since we're going to get into argument for a little bit for the next couple of weeks. So if you remember, we talked about ethos, pathos, and logos as rhetorical appeals towards the beginning of the year. We started off with argument and nonfiction and organizational patterns. So I want you to review these notes in this lesson for today. What I've done for you on each of these four squares is kind of giving you what the definition is. I've talked about what they can look like. So they can look like a professional format. They could look at sharing, publication or their background. Do they use vocabulary that makes them likable? I've also talked about what the effect on the audience is. So if I ask you that question, I've literally given it to you. So it helps the reader see the author as reliable, trustworthy, credible, competent, therefore allowing the reader to respect the author and their views. If you do not buy what they are selling, then their argument is not going to be effective. How to talk about it in writing. You might say something through the use of their scientific vocabulary, which is something up here in this upper quadrant. The author builds ethos by demonstrating expertise, or the author builds credibility or whatever, trustworthiness by doing these things. So these two sentences here are examples of how you might respond to it when you're talking about that appeal. So you don't always have to use the word ethos, pathos, or logos, but these are really helpful notes to look at how to talk about each of them. So ethos is really about their person's character or their ethics or their values, their credentials, any of that. Pathos is always going to be emotion. So it's whether they activate your emotions, whether it makes you angry or sad or frustrated. It's going to compel you to act. So there are vivid descriptions. If there's figurative language, typically that will be pathos related. If it makes you laugh, so we're going to talk a little bit about stand-up comedy. Obviously, there's going to be pathos in that because you're supposed to laugh. And then again, how to talk about it, right? When referencing these things, they appeal to emotions by doing X, Y, or Z. And then their effect on the audience. Hold on one second. My apologies. So their effect on the audience involves some sort of emotional response. Could be sympathy, could be laughter, whatever. And the last one is logos. So it appeals to logic and reasoning. Sometimes there'll be definitions or facts or quotes when they quote like different studies or other people. But it's logic, right? It's something that makes sense. If 1 + 1 is 2, then 2 + 2 is 4 kind of thing. It invokes a cognitive, rational response. This is not something emotionally related. So it's usually fact-based. This is something that a lot of people nowadays, when they argue, they always want to see the facts. Well, where is your facts? Where is your research? That's a logos-based argument. And so again, you have how to talk about it in the right-hand side. The last slide is going to be your instructions for today's assignment. If you want to preview it, don't worry about it right now. I will give you those directions later, but I have looked at these three colors for color coding. So I have yellow, blue, and green that I would like you to use later on when we get there. So we're going to practice this with a stand-up comedic act by Jerry Seinfeld when he talks about the invention of Pop-Tarts. So if you would like to read what he says, you can click on that transcript there, but we're going to watch it real quick together.
The Pop-Tart, by the way, was a moment in time when they invented, and I think Tom Brokaw tonight is going to be talking about the baby boom, and I am of that era. And when I was about 8, they invented the Pop-Tart. The back of my head blew right off. Right? Do you remember? Like what? I was in the supermarket aisle with my mother, and I'm like, hold it, hold up, hold everything. The hell is that? Fruit-filled frosted rectangles in a box, the same. The food is in the shape of the box. What is this? You open the box, they're not even in there, they're in packets. Remember the packets? Lined with some kind of metallic alloy from NASA to protect them from gamma rays, and Russian satellites might shoot at your brown sugar cinnamons. You had to protect them. And you open the packet, how many were in the packet? 2. Why 2? 1's not enough, 3 is too many, that's why. It was perfect. Perfect vision of the future from Kellogg's. 2 in each packet, 2 slots in the toaster. So you're 8 years old, you're like, I can do this. The toaster companies are in on it too.
Okay, so this is just a little funny about, looking at Pop-Tarts. He talks about the baby boomers, and he's a child of the 60s. And so ethos, remember, that's credibility and character. Well, first of all, he's a professional comedic. We know he's going to be funny. But he is a child of the 60s, so he does have important memories. He does have personal experience with breakfast before Pop-Tarts, and he talks about like how horrible they were. You could read them in the transcript here if you'd like to go back. Pathos is obviously he's funny. He vividly describes his excitement, right? Like when his mind is blown and things like that. He provides several metaphorical examples when he makes comparisons, and those are really in the transcript there, especially when he talks about these rectangular kind of things. The packaging from like NASA or whatever he says, right? That's pathos. It's supposed to make you laugh. It's vivid. And then logos, obviously it's logic. He explains why Pop-Tarts were such a genius idea from Kellogg's, right? He says 1 was not enough, 2 is too many, there's 2 slots in the toaster, like it makes sense, right? All of this logic. And so the main idea of this, I guess, argument or stand-up comic segment is that the invention of the Pop-Tart in the 60s revolutionized the breakfast industry, right? Kellogg's was really in on something. And they made like the best breakfast food invention, right? Because then after Pop-Tarts, then you had like the toaster strudel, and you had the Eggos and things that could fit into a toaster. So I thought that was pretty funny, and it was a really good example of using ethos, pathos, and logos. So you're going to practice with this first perspective. And remember when we read Harrison Bergeron before spring break, it was really about how everybody was equal. It takes place in the future. So we found 2 different analytical perspectives of Harrison Bergeron. So this is about what one person thinks Harrison Bergeron was about and what another person thinks it was about. So they have 2 slightly different perspectives. And so your task this week is to read both. We're going to just do one at a time and figure out who makes the stronger argument, right? I mean, could I see how Harrison Bergeron was about this, or could I see how Harrison Bergeron was about this perspective? So when you open up the document, you definitely want to use your ethos, pathos, logos notes, and you can click right here on this link to access them again. But you are going to color code them for ethos, pathos, and logos. And so if you would use the key in the last slide of the instructions or the notes, so ethos should be in yellow, pathos should be in blue, and logos should be in green. You're just going to read through it. It's 1 page. And it's an excerpt, so this isn't everything that the author read or wrote, but it's kind of a higher text, and so like some of it was a little bit over what we needed to know. So I just really pieced together some of the different paragraphs I thought were important. And so, he says, in a letter to me, Vonnegut indicated that the foregoing sympathy with losers influenced Harrison Bergeron, meaning like people who were not on the top, right? Because the equality is everybody who was exceptional was, mediocre, and that was kind of the baseline for everything. And so they go on and talk about a little bit of other things. There's even a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. They talk a little bit about egalitarianism, and I did give you a link to that, but that's basically where we want everything to be equal. We want everybody to be on equal ground. So you're going to read through that and color code just a few examples of ethos, pathos, and logos. There should be some examples of each. Like when we talk about the losers, that's pathos, right? That's kind of, sympathy. That's an emotional piece right there. That's also kind of like a little bit offensive, right? So that would be something you would highlight in blue right there. So once you just color code it, you just submit it. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to type anything. But I do want you to, in your attendance question for today, tell me what the main idea of the article was. And again, I'm linked it here in case you close it out accidentally. But what's that perspective about? What are they really saying that Harrison Bergeron was about? We know what Harrison Bergeron is about. What I'm saying is this author said, this is what I think is the reasons behind it. What are those reasons that he's giving us? And then give us one example of a rhetorical appeal. So I just gave you the one about pathos. You could literally just use that. So tell me the main idea, literally copy and paste what I just told you about 3 seconds ago for pathos, and that's it. And all you need to do is turn it in. And you can always go back into the lesson notes right here at the beginning and go back and look at what I did for ethos, pathos, and logos. Either one works, okay? So tomorrow you're going to get a second perspective. You're going to do a similar thing with it. And then on Thursday, we're going to evaluate which of these two perspectives made the stronger argument. And we'll take that into just looking at comparisons, okay? All right, guys, I know you're still working on a lot of missing assignments, so get to this when you can. Your number one priority should be finishing any major grade and any missing assignment that can improve your grade. I will not promise that I will grade anything that's submitted on Thursday or Friday. I can't promise I will get to it because my grades have to be submitted probably before noon or around noon by Friday. It takes a while for me to get those submitted. So I think last call should definitely be Thursday by your class period. After your class period, I can't promise I'll look at them again. Okay? All right, keep checking, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll see you later. Take care.